everyone. So before we really get into solving quadratics using the quadratic formula, I wanted to spend today just on practicing simplifying things that are kind of in this quadratic formula form, okay? So after you plug in all of the numbers into the quadratic formula, you're going to end up with an answer kind of in this form, all right? And you should end up, you end up kind of having to calculate two answers here, right? Because you have your plus sign and you have your minus sign. So let's go ahead. The first thing you're going to want to do is kind of see how you can simplify the radical. Now, sometimes it might simplify nicely and give you a nice whole number. Sometimes you might have to, break down the radical and you'll end up with stuff still left inside of the radical. Now, for this first one, root 36 is just equal to 6, right? We are aware that root 36 gives us 6. So we can replace the root 36 with just a 6. We know that the square root of 36 is 6. So we've got negative 8 plus or minus 6 all over 2. Now notice the radical is gone, right? In this case, the radical completely went away because we were able to simplify it. Now you're going to kind of split it up into two separate expressions. We've got negative 8 plus 6 over 2. That's this guy. And then we have to do the minus 6. So we're going to have negative 8 minus 6 all over 2. And that would be this guy. All right. So negative 8 plus 6 gives you a negative 2. Divided by 2 is going to give us a negative 1. And we've got negative 8 minus 6 over 2 gives us a negative 14. Divided by 2 is going to give us a negative 7. So the two solutions here would be x equals negative 1 and x equals negative 7. All right. So let's go ahead and try the next one. Now, again, the first thing you want to do is see if you can simplify what's inside this radical. In this case, it simplifies very nicely. The square root of 100 is 10. So you're going to write 5 plus or minus, and you're going to replace the square root of 100 with 10. So you get 5 plus or minus 10 over 3. So then, since we got that plus minus thing going on, we're going to separate. We get 5 plus 10 over 3 and 5 minus 10 all over 3. How did I get that? Well, I had my plus sign, and then I had my minus sign I needed to account for. So we can go ahead and simplify. We get 15 divided by 3, which gives us 5, and negative 5 divided by 3, which is just going to stay as negative 5/3. Can't really simplify that. So that would be your two answers there. Now, in both of these first two examples, the radical completely simplified into just a nice whole number. Now, in this next one, that's not going to be the case. So pay super close attention. So again, we're going to start it off the same way we do all these others. We have to try and simplify this radical. Now here we've got root 54. And you're going to simplify it just like we did at the beginning of this module, right? We spent all that time trying to break down those radicals. 54 can get broken down into 9 times 6, which is equal to 3 root 6. All right? So we're going to replace root 54 with 3 root 6. So bear with me here. We got 6 plus or minus 3 root 6 all over 3. Now, this is very, very important. A lot of people get this confused. So, unfortunately, you can't just stop here. Sometimes you can, but you need to look at these guys on top. You look at this number, and you look at this number. And you see, well, do I have a greatest common factor I can pull out? And yes, you actually can. You can take a 3 out of both of those. So you would rewrite this as 3 times, and then 6 divided by 3 gives you 2. Plus or minus, and 3 divided by 3 gives you 1. So it's technically 1 root 6, but we don't write that. We just write root 6. And then this was all over 3. Okay, so to reiterate, how did I get from here to here? I took a greatest common factor out of both of the top two terms. So then I can cancel out these 3's. Now you can only cancel out once you factored out of both of those terms. So once you do that, I get 2 plus minus root 6, and that would be your answer here. You could say x equals 2 plus root 6, and x equals 2 minus root 6. All right. So that one was a little bit more challenging. Let's see another example of that. All right. So we're going to go ahead, see if we could break down root 112. So keep in mind, you're going to want to keep that perfect squares chart right next to you. I would have that just always ready to go because you're really going to be using that a lot this unit. So you're going to want to use that perfect squares chart. And you're going to find that you can break 112 down into 16 and 7. So we know that 112 is equal to 16 times 7. Square root of 16 is 4. So we get 4 root 7. All right. So now I'm going to replace root 112 with 4 root 7. All right, so we got that. So now, again, we're going to look for a greatest common factor on top. The two numbers we're looking at are 10 and 4. Out of 10 and 4, I can take a 2. So I'm going to factor a 2 out of there. When I factor a 2 out of 10, I get 5. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. I do my plus minus. 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. So I get 2 root 7 all over 2. Now that I have factored out, I can cancel out my 2, and I get x equals 5 plus 2 root 7, and x equals 5 minus 2 root 7. And that would be my answer there. Now, please, 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 make sure you factor before you reduce, okay? I think a lot of people are going to do this. They'll say, ooh, I could factor a 2 out of there. 5 plus or minus 4 root 7. A lot of people are going to want to do this, but look, that's not the right answer. If you don't factor out of both terms, you're going to get the wrong number here, okay? This is wrong. So please make sure that you factor out, you take that GCF out of both the top two terms. All right. Next one. We're going to try and break down root 12. All right. So 12 can get broken down into 4 and 3. So we end up with 2. Oh, here, should rewrite it like this. We get root 4 times 3, which is equal to 2 root 3. So again, I'm going to replace my root 12 with 2 root 3. So I get 4 plus or minus 2 root 3 all over 4. Now again, we're going to look for a greatest common factor. I can take a 2 out of 4 and 2. So I'm going to take a 2 out. So I get 2 plus or minus root 3. Right, because 4 divided by 2 gives me this 2. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1, so I'm just left with the root 3. And of course, that's over 4. Now, 2 divided by 4. 2 over 4, right, coming from here and here, that gives me 1/2. So this is actually going to get reduced down. The 2 is going to go away, and the 4 just becomes a 2. All right, so we get 2 plus or minus root 3 all over 2. And the reason for that is because this is essentially like 2/4, right? We got the 2 over 4, and that goes down to 1/2. So technically, right, the 1/2 would be that 1 there. It'd be 1 over 2. But we don't write that. Remember how we don't write 1s? So it would just end up being 2 plus or minus root 3 all over 2, which would give us 2 plus root 3 all over 2, and 2 minus root 3 all over 2. All right, we're almost there, guys. You're doing great. Now for this one, we're going to try and break down root 8. So if you look at your perfect squares, make sure you don't look at your perfect cubes. You'll get the wrong answer. Your perfect squares, you can use 4 and 2, which is going to give me 2 root 2. So I end up with 5 plus or minus 2 root 2 all over 3. Now notice, I don't have a greatest common factor up here. I've got a 5 and I've got a 2. There is nothing I can pull out of both a 5 and a 2. So my answer here, I can't simplify it at all. This is my answer, so I would have 5 plus 2 root 2 over 3, and 5 minus 2 root 2 all over 3. All right? And that is how you would simplify that guy.